This is true. Hank really wanted to pitch a Pilates show.
I still think like workouts for skinny guys would be a really good. I just think it's another tap market. Like there's like lose weight, and it's like, but I don't want to. I just want to look like I'm not this. You know, I don't want to be the fattest skinny guy in the world. Like with no muscles but lots of, you know, it's like, oh, you weigh 160 pounds, and yeah, it's all fat. But I still think it's a good idea. But I can tell because you're pitching it to an EDU pair. But when we sat there, we actually wrote back to YouTube and we're like, what would you like us to pitch? And they're like, what you're good at. And we're like, ah. And we realized that, you know, if we're gonna have these resources, like what I want to do is to help make the world better and smarter and more interesting and more interested. And so with that in mind, we pitched two. The one that was like, I want to do this, John. Get off my face. You can pitch your thing. Just move past that. Which I, you know, I have all of these, you know, idols who made me want to learn and who made me want to do science. And some of them were authors, and some of them were on-screen communicators like Carl Sagan and James Burke. And to think like maybe I could do that for people I mean, it's just how could I pass up an opportunity to do that? So I wanted to do SciShow, which is just like, let's talk about science. It's really interesting. It's fun. It matters. It changes the world every day. And it's extraordinarily exciting. Like, I feel like I read the science section in the newspapers, and like every time I read something, I'm like, that's freaking amazing. Why isn't this on the front page? Why do we have all that other stuff? Why can't we just talk about science? All this other stuff is just like arguing and shooting at each other. I guess that's important too. And so that was what I wanted to do, and we've been doing it for 5 or 6 months now, and it's been really great. Thanks everybody for watching.
I'm John Green, and I'm Hank's brother. The other show that we have is called Crash Course. So there are, broadly speaking, kind of a couple. There are many ways of imagining education, but sort of two of the predominant ways. The first, most predominant way is that education is something that happens to people between the ages of like 6 and 21, or if you go to grad school, maybe somewhat longer, and it occurs between 8:30 and 3 o'clock every day, except that you also have some homework. And often feels like a series of hurdles that you have to jump over, and no one quite understands why these particular hurdles are the ones that you have to jump over, and no one really ever tells you why these hurdles are important, and you're just sitting there thinking, I wish that I could run this race without any hurdles. It would go so much faster and be so much easier. And I remember the first time I watched a Vi video, the first words that I ever heard Vi say were, so you're me and you're in math class and you're bored. And from there, it goes to talking about really interesting mathematics that happen as a result of her doodles while being bored in math class. And that was really inspirational for us when we were thinking about how to make a Crash Course, because we wanted to make something that was, genuinely educational, that could help, that could teach you a lot of the same approaches to the study of history. I teach world history, Hank teaches biology. That can teach you the same approaches that you're going to learn in a university course about approaches to the study of history, approaches to the study of biology. And we'll teach you a lot of the same stuff that you're going to learn in an AP biology or AP world history class. Not all of it, obviously, they're 10-minute videos. But that would be appropriate both for sharing in a classroom as a way of sparking discussion, starting a discussion of the topic, but mostly for people who just want to learn. And the astonishing thing to me is that there is this assumption that people don't want to learn, that what people want to do with their so-called free time is sit and stare at a wall and be like deeply disengaged. But that's not my experience of being a human being at all. My experience of being a human being is that, you know, certainly not all the time. I spend a fair amount of time playing Bejeweled, but like, every day, I think most of us have a moment where we're like, oh my God, I have consciousness. I should do something with this. And we wanted these videos to be an entertaining but deeply engaging way to make it possible to have that more engaged life. And I mean, one of the reasons that I'm so proud to be on the panel with these guys is that every single one of these people does that and is committed to it. We all have very different approaches to it. We all have very different ways of doing it. And one of the things I love about educational content on YouTube is that it's not one thing. You know, it doesn't all look the same. It doesn't all feel like a curriculum. It feels scattershot and messy and beautiful in the way that's what real education is in my experience. You know, real education is picking stuff up from many different sources and building. We were just at this conference where someone talked about building an intellectual ecosystem, which is just, I know that's like tremendously cheesy, but it's so true that like, the more you study, the more broadly you study, the more videos I watch of Henry's, even though I literally failed physics to keep my C student status on the academic decathlon team. It was an intentional fail, but still. But you know, the more I watch Henry's videos, the more I'm making connections, not just to the physical world around me and the way that it works, or to the way that the universe is constructed, but the more I'm making connections to, you know, things that might appear in my novels. And you know, one of the central themes of my new novel, The Fault in Our Stars, was said to me word for word by Vi, although I think that she might not believe it, but she said it when she said that sometimes it seems like the universe wants to be observed. And you know, that's something that she, you know, she was saying from a very different perspective, and I ended up writing about it. But to me, that's the magic of educational content on YouTube, is that it's so interconnected. It's not about disciplines, and it's not about media, and it's not about approaches, because we can repost all of that stuff. We don't have to worry about that stuff the way that people did until very recently. So that's why I'm excited about Crash Course, and I'm really honored to be on this panel. Thanks.
One thing I would love to know, and then I'll turn it over to the audience, is you guys are on the other side of it. You've already started channels. Some of them are non-educational channels, and I think once you're on the other side, you know, what kind of advice would you have? I'm sure there's people here in the audience today who would aspire to do what you guys do, maybe in their own special style or way. But what kind of advice do you have for them? Because creating, as you mentioned earlier, creating educational content can be challenging in ways that are different from creating other types of content that is successful on YouTube.
I would say that for me the biggest thing is not to have, not to necessarily want to have, you know, to be a YouTuber and make videos, but for me the key is that, like, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll think, like, isn't it so amazing that like the Earth exists? And for, you know, there's countless different reasons why, and I just want to share that with people. And I think that's really the key, is you find people who are, if you're so passionate about something that you just can't bear not sharing that with somebody. And I don't mean like with Instagram or something, but like seriously sharing the one word, not just a picture of it. You know, sharing the beauty and the majesty of the universe, or of human history and human struggle. That's what's gonna make your videos interesting, successful, and make people want to share that experience with you. If you can be really, really passionate, and if you wake up or at any time in the day, like if you have things that you want to let other people know about, and not that you want to, you know, like I didn't start off saying I want to make, you know, a successful YouTube channel. I started off saying physics is awesome, and I want to share that with people. And I don't think it's being done in high schools. I think people think physics is boring in high schools, which it kind of was. So I don't know how I ended up studying physics after high school, but I did. So that's my thought.
Commit to making a bad video. And people talk about how, oh, you should just get started and don't be afraid, and I'm sure it will be awesome. But just know that when you start, that's when you're starting. And it's okay to make a bad video. And if you kind of frame it in that way, I'm just going to commit to making a bad video. Let's see how this goes. And you're going to learn so much that you can then apply to making better videos and better videos. So people think of my videos as being, oh, the doodling in math class stuff. But my YouTube channel existed over a year before that stuff, and there's plenty of bad videos completely different on there. But you learn how to edit, you learn how to upload, you learn all those little things you don't want to think about once you're making good videos.
Ask questions. Whether or not you're someone like Henry who already knows loads about physics, and he's then surrounded by other amazing physicists, and he'll go and ask them a question to help inform what he's doing. Or you're someone like me who doesn't really know very much and is a bit thick and just has to ask lots of questions to the scientists until you find out. That doesn't matter. There's nothing wrong with asking a question. And if you get the answer and you don't understand the answer, ask the question again. There's nothing wrong with continually asking questions. Because unless there are lots of Nobel Prize winners out there that I don't know about, you probably don't actually know that much about what you might be making a film about. And then you'll be like me and have to find out. And you might consult experts, like I know some of these guys do, or you consult the Uber experts because you have access to them. But there's nothing wrong with asking questions. It doesn't make you look stupid. In fact, when I ask dumb questions to the scientists, they respect me so much more. They're like, you know, that's a really good question. They'll say, I've never been asked that before. And sometimes the question is just, what's that on that shelf over there? And they'll tell me, and then they don't realise how amazing these things are. So never be shy about asking a question. It doesn't make you look stupid. Science is all about asking questions, and scientists love people who ask them questions.
And I think really closely related to that point is that you should give your audience credit, and that to sort of speak to what John was saying about, you know, the beautiful mess that is YouTube education. All of the subject matter that we talk about is the same way. Like the beauty of physics, the beauty of chemistry, the beauty of math, the beauty of history, the beauty of the arts is that it is a mess. It is just a confusing mess. And that I think that is the reason why so many of us talk about how we were so bored in high school or in some of these classes, and that a lot of instructors, I think, want to hide the mess from you. And I think if you don't hide the mess, and if you embrace it as the thing that is interesting, coupled with asking really good questions, that is what a real meaningful educational experience is.
Yeah, on that subject of crediting your audience with intelligence, I think that's hugely important, and to trust, as Henry does, that that there is a way into telling any story, even a very complex story. I remember I was in college the first time I was in an intro to biology class in college, the first time in my career as a student when I asked a question and the professor said, "We don't know." And I was not aware of the fact that there were things in science that were not known. I thought like science was a series of memorizing the things that the people had learned, and that all of the things had been learned, and then I just had to slowly memorize all of them. And it was so incredibly exciting to me as a 19-year-old to discover that, at least in one small way, I'd gotten to the end. I'd gotten to the cool, messy, confusing part. And that was the first moment in my education when I realized that the idea of the hard sciences being so far away from the soft, namby-pamby social sciences was a completely wrong idea and a wrong-headed idea. And a lot of what the most exciting educational content on YouTube does is take its subject matter, whatever it may be, and sort of upend your expectations about whether it's quote-unquote hard or quote-unquote soft. And so I would ask you to credit your readers, or credit your viewers, sorry. I'm used to going to different kinds of conferences. Credit your viewers with intelligence, and the other thing that I would say is you're going to have to find a way to talk about this stuff that is interesting to people, and that's not easy. As Hank and I have learned, even if you're pretty good at talking to a camera, if you're just talking to the camera the whole time, it's really, really hard to explain what you're talking about, which is why so many of these guys either rely on drawings, illustrations, animations, or other ways of talking about it, because just the talking head can be challenging.
just add an anecdote. When we're doing crash course biology, I'm always looking for like things that aren't in the textbook and trying to be like, okay, so, but I don't really, like, just keep asking questions, like, even though I know a fair amount about biology, be like, but I never really learned this, and I don't really get, why didn't we learn that? Like, why don't I know why, like, how the motor proteins line the chromosomes up precisely in the middle during mitosis? Like, how do they do that? It's so, like, perfect. And then I just dove into that, and I was like, how do they do it, how do they do it? And I found a study that explained that, like, actually they had figured out how it works, and I'm not gonna go to that, but it was published in 2012. And like, we didn't have that when I was in school, because we didn't know that when I was in school. And the fact that science is an ongoing process is just really exciting, and I feel like it's ignored. And they're like, when you hit that wall and you're like, we don't know this, usually just, you don't bring it up. But my favorite thing to do is to say like, and